Melanie Marlo.
Lovely
Welcome.
to meet you. Thank
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's actually very exciting for me to, visit you and interview you for the first time.
Yes, we've never met.
Never met.
So this is great. We'll learn a lot about each other today.
Yes. So I guess first of all, we're sitting in this incredible property that you've designed and built.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's very interesting for me, and it's very inspiring for me to have a discussion about design and development. We have a lot of designers, females in construction and design in general, but developers are very, very unique. So
very. I know a lot of ladies who flip, do those small flips. But I think once you start getting to something this size and this expensive, I think the female pool starts to evaporate rather quickly.
Yes, it's about responsibility, right? It's a lot of responsibility to have something like that obviously under your responsibility,
Yes, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stress. It's a big burden to carry, and you're at the top of the totem pole. You're responsible for absolutely everything. The buck stops with you, so to speak.
Yes, as a developer, I understand that sometimes it's mind-boggling where you're working with subcontractors and vendors. You would assume that you actually they're going to push you, or they want to move things forward and faster. But you find yourself as the developer trying to, basically you need to move everybody around, which is ridiculous sometimes, right?
It's bizarre,
it's
really,
crazy, right?
Because you'd think, well, they get paid when they've done the job. But what I found working in Los Angeles, particularly on a larger project, is that they're very scattered. And then when you want to book them, there are 2-3 week window. So then you do book them, because I'm very regimented on the schedule, and then they just don't turn up. And they don't text to say they're not turning up, or they don't call. And I just found, how do they survive in their own business?
It's interesting, and you would imagine, and we're going to get into the conversation of how do you start, obviously to get to a point where you're building, a $20 million property, a $22 million property, you have to have a lot of experience under your belt.
A lot of experience and a lot of courage. And I like to say, grande cojones, because it's not for the faint-hearted.
Oh yeah,
it's
exactly.
not.
That's exactly. I did a video last time. I was actually checking another property in Bel Air that it's kind of a teardown. They selling the property. They started construction. They got over their head.
Yes.
It's very, very close by the way.
Yes.
And I just recently was there. I was looking at to buy it and redo it correctly, but they got over their heads, and basically they selling it. They were supposed to, build it and sell it, but they just stop in the middle.
It happens a lot. And I think part of that reason is we're now flooded with real estate shows on television. And I think, they make it look easy. And I think the viewer at home says, oh, I could do that. Oh, wow, how much? Oh, yeah, I could definitely do that. And then they start and they realize that actually it is a little bit more challenging than they anticipated. When people come to me and say, how did you start? And what advice could you give? I always say the same thing, start small. Start small. Because if the mistakes happen when it's small, they're easier to correct. And then if it's possible, then reinvest and go a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. But what we're seeing is a lot of people just jump in and they think they can build something like this without any experience. And sometimes that's just not the case.
Yes. And you see it both from end users, like, they're trying to do it themselves, right? Any type of renovation, really. And sometimes they realize, okay, that's not as easy as it seems to be, as I see on HGTV.
Oh,
right?
I love HGTV.
And like you said, sometimes you hiring, for me as a developer, as a general contractor, a lot of our business, it's in Silicon Valley, by the way, right? So we do have clients in LA, we have clients in Silicon Valley, we also operate in South Florida. But I do find, for example, what I call the private owner, people that actually live in the property, it's difficult to sign contracts with so many different individuals. For example, a general contractor, interior designer.
Yes.
an architect, right? You have so
many moving parts, and
so
I
many
think
moving parts.
the key. And you've just told me you're a GC, general contractor.
Yeah, and so you're working with GCs
yes,
as a
and
developer.
I think the number one rule of thumb is you've got to find the right GC. The right GC or a GC can make or break you. You know, there are a lot of GCs that are not ethical, they're not honest, and they can bring you down like a ton of bricks. So I think number one piece of advice I could give is, you know, do your due diligence when you're hiring your GC. And for the people who don't know this, a GC, a general contractor, will be bringing in other subcontractors.
Correct.
And will have a crew.
Right.
And so your relationship with your GC, general contractor, is really important. You have to be able to trust that person.
100%. So do you have any, secrets of, I mean, obviously I have my, when I talk to clients or I talk to people and I explain my kind of perception of how to find, the best subcontractors or general contractors, for example, right? What is your perception, when you're working with GCs like myself, right, for example, so what is your perception, how you advise, let's say, if somebody wants to do what you do, right, or even want to do a renovation in their home?
Yes, well, I think, look, I've made mistakes. I've hired the wrong GC, and it's awful, and that's an understatement. But I think when you're looking for general contractors, I think word of mouth is really important. And for example, the GC that I'm working with now, I would refer him and have already referred him to many other people because he's that good, he's that reliable, and he's that honest. It's my pleasure to refer him to other people because I know they're in good hands. And so, if you're thinking to come into this business, I think the best advice is to interview 5. Don't just go with the first one. Go with 1, 2, 3. It's not, you can't overdo this. The importance of that person in a development, I can't stress enough. And so, and also because you're working quite closely with your general contractor, you have to have some chemistry. You have to have a bond. You have to know that when you pick the phone up and things are going wrong, which inherently they do, that you two are on the same page and you can communicate very well together.
Exactly. So, I always tell my team, or, my clients, it's not that, in construction, it's a work in progress. Eventually we're gonna get to a perfect heaven, but it's gonna take some time. You want to work with someone that will back you up in every situation.
Yes.
Because I've seen people just running away when things get tough.
Oh yes.
So that's another kind of issue, right?
Yes.
Like because sometimes like there is certain things during construction that you get that person that afraid to say something. Maybe they messed up some kind of inspection, right? They didn't go through inspection.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't do things right. Obviously you have some of those experiences, but they're not going to come clean because they're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to lose money or whatever the case may be.
I think, whenever we're doing a build, there is always going to be things that go wrong. That's the nature of our business.
You have to assume that, right?
Yes, you have to factor that in.
Yeah.
I know when, I've talked with GCs, they'll say, I've factored in a 3% contingency. And I've turned around and said,
you need 10.
Let's make 10. Yes,
right?
You know it. You've
exactly.
got to have a good solid 10% for things that the unforeseeable. We don't know what's in the ground until we dig down. And so there are so many facets of things that can go wrong and do go wrong. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when I was coming on this job site towards what I call the finish line, and the finish line is the finishers.
The finishers.
It was quite eye-opening, the things that I uncovered, which were not up to par. And when you look at your crew and you're asking around and you're saying, well, who did this? There's no one raising their hand.
Right,
Believe me,
it's unbelievable.
There's no one raising their hand.
I feel like in some projects, I feel like a kindergarten, like literally, right? I like nobody's gonna, everybody's gonna blame each other, Like the vendors, the subcontractors, they're almost like
they're pointing fingers, aren't they?
Pointing fingers. Yes. Nobody's gonna take and I keep telling them, guys, I'm not a kindergarten over here. You guys have to be responsible. It's not about who's to blame or who's in fault. It's about how we can, make things better, how we can avoid, repeating the mistake.
Exactly.
And move forward with confidence, right? Because
Yes.
our goal is to finish the projects in excellent way.
People, when they come into a home, they know within 7 to 11 seconds if they love it enough to buy it. And that's because it's an emotional purchase. They're buying with their eyes. So another thing that I would recommend is when you're looking for your GC and his crew and his subs, you want to go to previous jobs that they've done. You want to look at the craftsmanship. You want to look at the quality of work. And it's, again, very important that they have the same eye as you. I don't know anyone who has my crazy eye, because I can see things that I can see that's out, not really now, but I can see things if they're out quarter of an inch.
That's what's unique to you as a developer. That's your vision, right?
Yes.
How do you bring that vision to reality?
Yes.
So how long you been, so I want to kind of go backward, right? That's really what interesting me the most is how do you start in the industry? Do you have a design background?
No.
No?
I like my story because I hope it gives hope to people at home with the fact that, I have absolutely no qualifications. Now, we talked earlier about making it look easy. I'm not here to say it's easy, but I do think that, I started over 20 years ago, and it sort of was just an idea. But I did follow my own advice. I started very, very small. I started with a terrace house in the north of England that was literally 2 rooms down and 2 rooms up.
You never been a realtor, correct?
No.
So why real estate? Why development? Why design?
Exactly. I don't know the answer. I just remember the conversation I had. And the conversation went something like this. What would you like to do? I'd like to renovate houses.
Like the conversation you had with yourself?
No.
Or?
I was married.
Oh, okay,
and,
I see. Okay.
What would you like to do?
I see, okay.
And I said, I'd like to do real estate. I'd like to renovate houses. What do you know about renovating houses? Nothing. But I know I can do it. So
you just had
it was a thought. It was an idea. And I knew I could do it. And if you ask me, how did I know that? I think, my background, I did models. So I knew about colors and design and from that angle. And I think when I'd never done interior design, but I did purchase and choose every piece of furniture in this house because I'd had 2 staging companies come in, and both times it looked dreadful, and I told them to remove everything. And then I was like, well, I'll just do it myself. And I'm really happy with what I've chosen. There's no school that I went to. There was no qualifications. It was just an innate feeling of, I can do this. Now, not everybody can. And I think I'm a 2 feet in person. I never do anything half-hearted. If I'm not 2 feet in, I'm not in at all. I'm never 1 in, 1 out. And I think the commitment to any business is really, really important, where I'm not a quitter. My joke is, if I was a quitter, I'd stop eating chocolate, right? So, and in this business, you want to quit a lot.
That's true.
You do. You can't believe the amount of things that go wrong and what you have to do to correct them. So there's many times like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. And then it's finished. I liken it to being pregnant and giving birth. And then you've got your baby. And then here's my baby. And I go, well, of course I'd do it again. But no, it was something that I did where it was, I was given the money to do my first one. And it was a $50,000 loan. And I knew it was only going to be one and done. So I literally renovated that house myself with my mother. And because I knew if I didn't make a profit, there was not any more coming. And that drive to succeed was really powerful. And not only did I succeed, it sold on the first day for over ask, and I made 75% on the money. So then when I went home, I was told, okay, go and do another one. And then another, and then another. And that's how I built my business. But I did start small. I never lots of people have told me I can't do things, including my GC at times, my previous GC. And I always like to say...
That's why it's a previous.
That's right, because my current GC is wonderful. But I like to say, watch me. That also drives me.
That's the fire in the belly,
it's
right?
The fire in the belly is, you don't think I can do this?
I'm going to show you.
Okay. And I do think there's, I think some of us are born that way. Some of us are born fiery with, passion and desire to succeed, and some aren't. And I think that's another thing you should do, is really ask yourself, am I that person? Am I that person who's going to put the 14-hour days in, the 16-hour days in? Or am I happy doing my 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, and not have to worry about a thing?
The stress and the worriness.
Because you can do that. There's no right or wrong. It's just, how do you want to live your life?
Exactly right. So you have to look at your lifestyle and see if it's kind of matching, because this thing is not, for a short term. If you get into this business, you have to be in the long run, obviously.
Yes.
And there is so many obstacles along the way. But I love the way you articulate the baby idea. Like, that's your creation. You actually put your stamp on, a project when it's done. Building that kind of, it's another baby, right? That you kind of take care of. That's the way I see my projects. It's very interesting. Like, there is certain word you're definitely articulate different than I am. But I always say, every project, it's like a baby. Even if it's not my property, if I build for clients.
And that's the key, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to your viewer. When you're picking your GC or a subcontractor, you want them to look at your project as their baby.
For us, it's very personal.
You don't want them to just turn up and do their job and leave.
Right.
You want them to have a passion, as much passion as you, that they're creating something beautiful with you. And that really is key. My general contractor that I have now, he is so passionate, and these are his babies too. And so we have the same vision, and we have the same passion, and we have the same desire.
It's incredible, and that's really the best matchups when you find the right team to work with you, and it takes time, obviously, to find the right people.
It does.
But when you do, it's kind of makes you feel much more comfortable to get into more and more projects, right?
Absolutely,
and again,
building that trustworthiness as well.
Yes, that's super important, right? Building the trust with your obviously with your team, and also again, I also have kind of something in the way I see it. I like to look at kind of if it's a spec home that I'm building, obviously. I'm thinking, like, who is my client? Like, who is
I always do that. Who's buying this house? Who's buying this property? Who am I building it for? That's right.
And I kind of teach, obviously, we have investors, we have our teams, right? Project managers and superintendents and so forth.
Yes.
It's kind of like one of the pillars for success in real estate development is, like, who do you building it for?
That's right.
That you have to start with that vision, right, in mind. You have to buy it right.
You have to buy it. There's only three things. You buy it right, you build it right, and you sell it right. We're just numbers. We just input the numbers. This makes sense.
And you
then
said,
you hope.
The team, right? The right team.
The team, super important.
The vision, who you're building it for, the right team, buying it in the right price. We don't speculate when we buy.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because, if a lot of agents will tell you, you can build it and sell it.
You sell it for this. And you're looking, you're going, no.
Yeah,
No.
So funny story, Melanie. Yesterday, I have a lot of real estate, professionals reach out to us via Instagram. We are very exposed on Instagram, right? So I had an agent that reached out to us yesterday, and he's like, whatever you like, just tell me what you're looking for. I'm going to get it to you, right? So, my team kind of shared, what we're looking for, right? So, we told them, we're not, because these days, sometimes they send you, like, let's say a property, you see there is perfect plans, perfect renderings. If someone wants to flip that property without doing the work, right? So they bought a property like 5 years ago.
RTI, ready to
build. But some of them, they kind of looking for an end user, not for a developer, right? Because you can't, there is no profit anymore.
There's no skin on the bone.
There is no skin on the bone, right? So he sent me one property that was like $50 million, beautiful, brand new construction.
And don't you love how they just talk about 50 million or 100 million or like it's, here's 50 cents.
Right.
Because it's not their money, it's our money.
Yeah, my team told them, unlimited budget for the right property. So he's like, okay, let's send a $50 million property. Why not?
I feel at this point I don't actually have anything left to prove, because where would I go from here? A $50 million property? I'm not, I don't need that.
Yes.
That's just not a need for me.
It's like watches and cars. You get to a level, anything above 100K, it's preference.
Yes,
and
exactly.
some billionaires, they are very cheap. They don't like to spend any money. And some people, they just like, they enjoy cars, they enjoy cigars, they enjoy watches, they enjoy properties, real estate. It's really preference. But there is a certain level when you get to that anything above it, it's really preference.
Yeah,
it's
agreed.
what you're, you know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
It's not if I'm driving a Mercedes S-Class, for example, or a Rolls-Royce SUV, it's just a preference in that level, right?
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with real estate. If you can buy a $50 million property and you can buy 100 million, there is not too much. I mean, it's not about like how much is the value of it. It's really what your preference and what you like.
Right.
And some people collect real estate as an art,
Yes.
and mind-boggling. Some people invest in art, and you look at a small painting, and the painting is like $200 million.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
So it's really for the eye of the individual,
Right.
the value of things.
Agreed.
And obviously, as you know, the most important thing in real estate, it's like, when people say, what is the value of it? What someone is
willing to pay for it.
There is no value in those kind of real estate.
Yes.
In luxury real estate, it's really
It
depends,
is.
right?
It's someone who comes to your home and just falls in love. And then there's, now we just happen to be in a really, really tricky market right now.
Yes.
I would go as far to say the worst market we've ever been in. Last year was a disaster. I mean, if we go back to 2008, that was a really, really tough year. I was building here then. And, we have these cycles of when things are really tough. We're having one now, we had one then. And that's when you really do have to dig deep. Understand that this too will pass. It's all part of the real estate
It's part of the
cycle.
yes. Yeah.
And I think people get into trouble when they can't hold sometimes.
I think your agent actually came up with a video yesterday on Instagram that I think him or someone else that it's the lowest point of new home buyers since 2009. So
I believe that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yes,
Because 2008 was like the real estate meltdown.
Yes, no, that was a very, very difficult time.
So it's kind of almost like, it's good to know that, like, because for example, like, I'm looking at my business and, for us, we do service client. So we have the effect that we don't just have the spec homes, we do have the cash flow from building for our clients.
Yeah.
And that's what
keeps you
something that
going.
I always wanted to make sure that I got,
Yes.
right? So I never left that side of the business.
That's very smart.
Yeah, because I know I need that cash flow.
That's your salary. Let's say that's
Right.
your salary, and then when you build a spec house, if the market's like
Stalled,
sludge, like it is now,
exactly.
well, then that will keep you, so you don't have to do what we
right.
call a fire sale, which
Right.
is where you just almost give it away because you can't afford to carry it anymore.
Yeah, that's why 2008 we had several properties, but we never lost them because we kept
You'd got
the
your
cash
bread
flow,
and butter.
right? And all of a sudden, bam, 2011, 2012, all of a sudden the market started going up,
Yeah.
and it's like, thank God we kept
held.
moving, we didn't sell, right? Because
Yes.
sometimes it's like in the stock market, the stock goes
That's
down.
right.
And they
That's
go back
right.
up, right?
Yes,
In
yes.
history, the worst
Yes.
crashes, right?
Yes.
People went crazy.
Exactly.
If they didn't sell, they didn't lose, right?
Exactly.
But when you kind of ride in that cycle, it's tough.
Whew, it's so
Right?
tough.
It's tough,
And here we go again.
So-
We have another one.
Yeah.
But I have faith that this year we'll see some turnaround. I mean, we had the dreadful fires in the Palisades, which
LA been through some tough times.
Very,
that's for sure.
very, very
Yeah,
tough,
It's ridiculous.
you know,
the
I
fact
mean-
that you cannot go to you don't have Malibu, you don't have Pacific Palisades.
I
Just
know.
wow,
very,
hard.
very challenging times.
Yeah, for me, like weekends are always like Malibu, Pacific
know.
Palisades.
I know.
The fact that you cannot go, I mean,
Go.
it's
awful.
yeah.
I go because I have a pass.
Yeah.
And we're looking to actively give back to the community. I
Oh, that's
would love.
beautiful.
I lived there for over 5 years,
really?
so for me, my heart's there, and I would love to help rebuild the Palisades because that was such a very, very special place to live.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
and it's again, it's it's a very tough situation for a lot of people, So
And you're building in South Florida, so after this, I would like to build something in West Palm Beach. You know,
West Palm
we
Beach.
have something called the ULA tax. I don't know if you're aware of
Yeah,
it.
of course. Yeah, it's
Bane
ridiculous.
of my life.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, when we talk about skin in the game, now they've added another 5.5% tax here in LA, which makes it almost impossible to make any profit
I
at
almost
this
have
point.
I have a theory about all those taxes and all the situation. Several years ago, when LA was Miami, now everybody
Yes.
went to South
Yes,
Florida and
yes,
Miami.
yes, yes.
Traffic was crazy, and
Yes.
the city was very overcrowded. And it feels like because I'm traveling a lot, I can see it. If you go to Florida right now, forget about driving. It's impossible.
Well, I won't do Miami for that reason. I don't like congestion. I don't like overpopulation.
I'm just saying, right?
But I know that about Miami.
It's ridiculous. When I'm in Miami, I have a driver. I don't drive.
Yes, good idea.
Just to get from the hotel to the airport is like a couple of hours.
Oh
But
my
you're
gosh.
sitting there, like just to go to Whole Foods. You want to go shopping?
No.
They don't have Air One, unfortunately.
No. But West Palm Beach and Palm Beach, I feel like that's just such a lovely area. And then we don't have to deal with the taxes. So if you have a crew over there, then maybe we'll...
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely
yes.
one of the reasons I wanted, obviously
Yeah.
to collaborate. I love to
Yes.
collaborate. My slogan is dream, create, collaborate.
I love that.
Right, the
what
vision.
a lovely saying.
That's
So
all my posts: dream, create, collaborate.
I
You
love
must
that.
collaborate. You cannot do things by yourself.
Agreed.
To implement your vision, money, it's unlimited if you have access to money.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And we actually, so I have, under my companies, it's kind of the Moses Hershko development, based on obviously my name. So we have an umbrella of companies, and one of them it's MHD Capital, and we're going to raise $150 million for
Okay.
development kind of opportunities, right?
Yes.
I love the single family,
Yes.
so I never stop doing the single
Yes,
families, no
yes,
matter what.
yeah.
But the type of things that excites me now, it's like, again, those kind of properties that really appeal to the 1%. The way I like to say it, those kind of property doesn't being affected by the economy. For example, David
not
Beckham
getting
just bought a
loans.
property for $70 million, and there is so many buyers like that. It's not just you hear about the Bezos, you hear about the billionaires, right? But there is so many people that buying those properties.
Well, I think it's staggering right now. I mean, the market here is dreadful, but we know in Florida it's much better. But you're right, the 1%ers aren't as affected.
They're not
by
affected. That's why I love to build for the 1%. That's what we call the podcast building for the 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that this property, it's also kind of, again, because we said the 1%, it's a preference. I think when you get to a $20 million and up,
Yes.
It's 20, it's 30, 50.
That's right.
It's the same caliber.
Yeah. Well, it is. I've had people come here who were looking at a $35 million home around the corner. So their spread
And they might like
is
this one
huge,
better.
and they might like this better.
Exactly.
So I think you're right. Once we get over that 20 million mark, it just becomes more, oh, this is 25, this is 35, this is 40.
When I search for a new location, for example, I just actually read today on the paper. So there is a location. It's called Manapalan. I don't know if you heard about it.
No.
So it seems like the new West Palm Beach.
Oh,
Yes.
tell me more.
Yeah, I'll get you the newspaper actually.
Yes.
The mention section on you don't even
I
read
don't
newspaper.
know.
You're gonna love that section. It's called mentions. On Fridays they have that
I
mentions.
should buy it on Friday.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's the best. I'll bring you one.
Thank
I'll bring you
you.
one.
Okay.
And so there's a property that I've seen for $250 million in Manapalan, and they had a huge article about the location, and they explain. They always have those kind of special kind of articles, right? And a lot of people, because West Palm Beach, a lot of people think it's the new thing, but it's already almost like we passed the train a little bit with West Palm Beach. There is so much developers, and
Yes,
I try to buy properties in West Palm Beach. The problem is, if you go to West Palm Beach right now, the prices are so
inflated, aren't they?
That I have agents that contact us again, and it's like, please don't send me those inflated prices, properties, right?
Agreed.
And they are so greedy also.
I know.
Mind-boggling.
Well, the thing is, when you look, and because we're in the business, we can find out.
Yeah, I mean, you bought a
what
property
they purchased
you
it
bought
for.
it for $3 million.
Yeah.
I'm giving you 6.
Yeah.
Why you want 15?
I know.
It's
I know.
unbelievable, right?
I agree. So I think, okay, Tom, I'd love to hear about this
So
new place.
Manapalan, I was looking into the location, and actually I'm planning to go to check it out. So I'm kind of connecting with the
Okay.
agent and looking for opportunities. But you always have to look for kind of the new kind of thing. There is also another. So for me, again, I'm looking for very specific, unique locations.
Yes.
I loved Malibu. Unfortunately,
I know, you can't.
didn't happen, right?
No.
I was actually looking at the property in Malibu just before the events, So unfortunately, it didn't work for us.
No.
For example, I love Golden Beach. I don't know if you're familiar with Golden Beach. It's another location in South Florida. We should go to Florida, by the way. I'll show you around.
There.
Yeah,
I want to be
it's
there
amazing.
so badly.
So check
So
it
we'll
out.
definitely go.
The way I kind of like to do stuff, for example, in Golden Beach, there are only 350 homes. It's considered the Beverly Hills of I guess, Miami,
Yes.
right? There is only 350 homes in the entire
Love it.
space. It's a very small kind of town.
Love that.
They have their own police department.
Love it.
So
yes.
they have a private beach, right? So now it's really interesting. So you have the what we call the dry land, So you have the ocean front.
Yes.
And you have the one behind it.
Yes.
So can you imagine a property just across the street?
Yes.
Across the street properties you can get for a tear down or land for development for like maybe $2, $3, $4 million, and in front of you have a 50 million, 100 million property.
Yeah.
North Bay Road is where Beckham just bought the property, right? A lot of developers, they buy those property for $2 or $3 million, and they're building a $20 million. But people buying it because maybe you can afford it 15, maybe not 20, maybe 15.
Yes.
You can afford the 10, 15, but you
Yes.
cannot afford 50.
50,
But
no.
you're in that beautiful neighborhood, in that safe, great neighborhood.
Yes.
So it's very, it's valuable.
Whereabouts is it located compared to Miami or West Palm?
So North Bay Road, it's Miami Beach.
Oh, it is.
Yes, it is Miami Beach.
Okay.
But it's one of the most upscale locations. So I felt that trend in the market several years ago, before you start seeing all those celebrities buying into it and so forth. But a lot of people don't know. For example, there is that guy, the fifth rich person in the world, Salim something, that owned a lot of telecom companies. He lived in Golden Beach for 20 years. Ralph Lauren, a lot of celebrities, people kind of discover Florida almost since COVID.
Yes,
but
that's when it happened.
But you start discovering so many billionaires and so many wealthy, the wealthiest people.
Yes.
They always have, something going on in Florida forever.
Yeah.
And now you had a lot of people from California and from New York move to Florida. So I love Florida.
I do too.
We did some great deals during COVID because we bought stuff during COVID. It's very interesting. Also, what I do like about Florida, you can get a deal. Like properties actually sit in the market for a little bit. And there is always like a 6 to 12 months timeline,
right?
That you can snap if you know the specific location. You can get those property for very good price.
Well, the house that I've seen in West Palm, I found one. It was on the market for 9. They dropped it to 8. They dropped it to 7.
Interesting. Ocean.
They've dropped
waterfront?
it to 6.
All right.
And it's still sitting.
What is the street name?
Oh, I don't know. I went last year in February. I haven't been back since.
Send it to me. I'll check it out.
Okay.
Steve Wayne, the owner of the Wayne Resorts.
Yes.
He just bought a teardown over there. He's a billionaire. He likes real estate.
Steve Wynn?
Steve Wynn.
Steve Wynn's married to my friend's ex-wife.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's actually who I went to see.
Wow,
so
okay.
That's
So
quite funny.
he's very bullish on West Palm Beach.
Yes, he is.
And he loves real estate.
Yes.
I guess he's doing it for fun, right?
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
So he's been flipping properties, I know, for many, many years.
Yeah.
And he just bought a teardown in a street named Washington Road, I believe. So if you look at the map, right, there is like a kind of pocket with like maybe only like 20 houses with huge land.
Oh, I love land.
I love when it. So for me, when I'm searching for something, it's have to be, I ideally 1 acre and up.
Yes.
But the bigger, the better.
Yes.
I believe in that, the land value, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly, a lot of people are very bullish on also the guy that Related company, right? The biggest developer, Related, Steve Ross.
Yeah.
Is a billionaire developer, right? One of the founders. He moved to West Palm Beach. I think he grew up on West Palm Beach.
Okay.
But he went back now to West Palm Beach. They're building a huge college, like a big. Yeah, so they have plans to build like a huge college, huge community.
Yes.
And there is a lot of money that going into West Palm Beach right now.
Yes, there is.
The thing is, again, just because it's very inflated, It's
know.
very tough. But if again, if you look at the more expensive properties, that's maybe where you have a shot. If you're trying to look under 5 million, it's very difficult. If you're trying to look for more expensive properties, like you said, in the $10 million range, that's where you have opportunity. Especially if you partner with someone,
exactly,
that's where you have more power.
Well, I was thinking about that place for myself.
So we're gonna make sure this one is sold first.
Yes, let's sell this, and then
let's sell this one.
That house I've seen, I'd like it for myself. It needs a complete gut job. I mean, it's a proper rip everything out.
Let's check it out.
Yes.
So it's interesting. There is another company that kind of have investors. They invest in properties. They bought. I don't know if you heard about Kanye West property that got sold recently, right?
Yes, I do.
The property was for sale for $39 million, and the guy put an offer for $20 million. They got it.
I know.
They got it. So
it was a very odd property, though.
They got. I know the hard money lender. They got $20 million loan. They put only $1 million to buy the property.
Stop it.
Seriously, So I tell the agents, I have unlimited money for the right deal.
Yes.
Because if it's the right deal, you don't even need money.
Yes. Yes.
That's an example. Mm-hmm. It's tough to find those kind of situations, obviously. But I work with so many different lenders. So I messaged the lender. It's funny. It's not funny. It's actually it's kind of a shame. Most real estate agents, they don't know what things are value, and the comps, the agents' comps are not really accurate. If you look at the lender comps, they have a different comp from the average real estate agent. The good agents, they know the market, they know what things worth, and they're fighting for their client to get a better deal. Yeah. But you do have a lot of agents that trying to convince you as the developer why you should pay more instead of convincing their buyer. So they don't convince me. I'm the developer. I know what things worth.
I know. And I think on the other end, when you come to sell your place too, the agents come with their comp list. And I always tell them, please don't show me that. Please don't show. You're going to show me a comp on this road. Okay, because
I hate those comps.
That's the only thing that we have in common. You're showing me a house on this road, but it's from 1950. Yeah. It needs complete renovation. But you're using that as it's not a comp. I'd say that there isn't a comp for this house, because when I bought the land, there was a tear down on it. And
you bought it as a tear down?
I did. Some people might have rehabbed it. I wanted to tear it down. And I remember telling my agent at the time and the GC I was working with, they said to me, both of them, you can't build, the last house I built was modern. And so they said, you can't build what you built, on West Hollywood. This has to be Cape Cod or Tuscan or Spanish. And I remember going in my head,
Cape Cod, no.
Yeah. And then I went home and I took my sketch pad and a pencil, and literally my scribble that I did that night is this house. The 3 points of reference I had as where I started my design was on that piece of scratch paper that night. And then I did text both of them and I said, respectfully, I disagree. I think there's a buyer for a modern home on Stone Canyon Road.
For sure. I think, real estate, Melanie, I think it's all about timing. Sometimes you get in the right timing, sometimes you get not in great timing, right?
100%.
Like we talked about the cycles in real estate. In a decent market, some properties are flying off the shelves. And when it's bad, it's kind of bad for everybody in a way, right? So like you said, you just like wait it off, wait it off a little bit, right?
Yes.
But it's coming, and they say it's never as good as it seems to be when it's good, and it's never as, and what I'm saying, like when you kind of riding that wave of success, and things going easier, like in COVID, the business was booming, obviously, for everybody.
That's
right?
what I had an agent tell me the other day. She thinks that it's going to come back gangbusters again.
It will. It will take some time.
Yes, she thinks when it does come back, it will be. It tastes
like
the COVID days.
It tastes like 2008 a little bit. It's been tasting like that for a minute, and if they say it's 2009, so we already a year past that, so it's good.
Yes.
But sometimes it's 2 or 3 years before it starts going up.
Yeah.
But also it's very interesting situation because there is a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? With the tariffs, and all kind of different things.
It's not helping.
If the Feds reduce the interest rates,
they will.
For example, let me tell you something very, very interesting. That it's actually, unbelievable. But in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area,
Yes.
properties are now going above asking. Back like in COVID days, people are overbidding.
Huh. Why do you think
it's
that?
very interesting. So I tell you what I know for sure that the real estate brokers do. They and they talked about it recently. They have some kind of issue in they talked about Zillow, some kind of listing. A lot of brokers, they have private listings supposedly.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how they do it, but it's almost like they try to have monopoly on the business and the listing. And strategically, the way I see it, because I'm looking at a very specific location, I see there is only one property for sale in a given week.
Oh.
So they putting it strategically. They putting a market.
So it's like a drip feed.
Yeah, they put a drip. Now over there, it's in LA people are different. In Silicon Valley, people also have different mentality. So the agents, right? The agents, they kind of preaching, I guess, to their clients, like, listen, there is no inventory.
No inventory.
You want. I put an offer. I put
desire.
an offer on a tear down in a location. I build a lot in Atherton, California. I don't know if you're familiar with Atherton.
Yes.
Probably the richest zip codes in the country, right? By average. And I put an offer for $4 million. That was the asking price.
Okay.
Somebody bought it for $5 million.
Oh gosh.
$1 million over asking.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's ridiculous, right? It's a lot. And few other properties, people also overbidding.
Doing the same.
So I start seeing, it's like, okay, as a developer, I want to build for spec. I cannot pay. It's not worth for me to pay $1 million more, right?
No.
So I kind of say, okay, I have to take a break over here. I have to look at different locations because the market, it's
hot.
crazy.
It's too hot right now.
Then Zillow came and said they blocking those private listings.
Oh, really?
They start having like a kind of a discussion about it. So what I see in the market right now, that a lot of brokerage start doing, they kind of imitating what they've been doing with cars and watches. Like if you go to a watch dealer, for example, a watch store, and you want to buy a watch, you can't buy a watch. But interestingly enough, you have to buy the watch on a second market.
Yes.
And it's always available. Obviously, he called to the store, they get it from the store, but they would not sell it to the client.
Right.
The reason for it, because when watches, for example, or cars are available, nobody would buy them. But COVID, you had shortage, in inventory.
So during COVID, I mean, I've got a cute story with a car, and I am a car person. I go to the Monterey Car Show every year, and I had one of the first Lamborghini Uruses. And
I think I saw it on your Instagram.
Yeah, I had a yellow one. Then I had my second one was the Performante, which was the second one, which I did carbon. I design everything, so I did the carbon fiber over the bonnet and everything.
You love Lamborghinis more than Ferraris?
No, I love Ferraris too, but Lamborghini's been very good to me. When I lease my cars because I like new ones all the time.
Yeah, me too.
And the Lamborghini, when I gave it back after my 3-year lease, I had $100,000 in equity in it.
Wow, that's cool.
And so that's to your point, when something's not available, it holds its price. And so then I took the equity of that and put it into, the next car I got was the Bentley Bottega. And I think that's what it was. We had such a shortage on the chips during COVID, so we couldn't get the cars. But I always pre-order my cars. Always. I always
do the same thing.
Yeah,
I pre-ordered the cars
that's
also.
why I got the first
I just
Lamborghini.
ordered the Rivuelto, the new Lamborghini. I don't know if you heard about it.
Oh, no.
It's a super car. It's beautiful. It's got the wings. It's ridiculous.
Did you say you put an order in?
Yeah, I just ordered it. It's called a
ordered
Lamborghini Rivuelto. It takes like 12 months to build it.
12 months. See, I
got
waited
super cool specs
years for that. But yes,
so
if
my
you
Rossos,
pre-order everything and it's new.
I have a black badge Cullinan. I ordered the car. I saw the car when it came out. I ordered it. I spec'd it. I got it from Rolls-Royce in Idaho, something like that.
Okay.
They just delivered. I never saw the car. They just delivered.
Yeah.
I signed the paperwork electronically, and they delivered the car.
I love it. I love that you do
and
that.
sometimes I end up buying those cars if I fall in love with the car. I buy in it, and like you said, I have an equity like $150,000 on the car, right?
That's right. Because if you pre-order and it's something
you don't
new,
pay above sticker.
Yes, exactly.
But you want to buy a G-Wagon, you have to pay $50,000 above sticker, which is crazy, right? Yeah. And same thing with the watches. Patek Philippe. If you can buy it in the store, it's like $100,000, for example. But in the second market, it's like $300,000. It's like 3 times more expensive. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So I start seeing that shift in real estate. They making those properties like they create scarcity. There is no availability.
Yes.
Right? So in those markets where people are taking the bite, they overpaying. So you see Silicon Valley, certain pockets in Silicon Valley overbidding. It's like nothing changed since COVID.
Wow.
People overbidding. It's a crazy market. So in Atherton, for example, that's a great location to do spec homes. The money is there. If you get a decent, you don't have to get an amazing deal. You get a decent deal, you build something nice, that's relevant to the location.
You'll sell it.
You're gonna make a lot of money on it, right?
And you will sell it. I think the toughest part right now.
Atherton, that's one of those locations, right? Golden Beach, it's one of those locations.
Yes.
North Bay Road, it's one of those locations, right? West Palm Beach, it's not there yet.
No.
It's not like,
There's
you know what I mean?
There's a lot of development going on. I just spoke with an agent over there. There's a Ritz-Carlton high-rise being built.
In West Palm Beach?
In West Palm.
It's also related, I believe, right?
Pardon?
I think it's related development.
I don't know if it is.
You don't know?
There's 3 high-rises going up. I talked to the lady about the Ritz. There's another one, I can't remember the name.
Ritz-Carlton?
Yes.
Ritz-Carlton, it might be done by BH Group, potentially. It's also an Israeli guy.
I'll have a look when we
it's one of the biggest developers. So I actually almost signed a lease on an apartment. I wanted to get an apartment in Sunny Isles. Sunny Isles, you heard about the location? It's a beautiful,
I've heard of it. I don't know it.
Beautiful.
Is it?
And I was looking, but the rents, for example, the rents are in that location. It's mind-boggling.
No, really?
Yeah, mind-boggling. Rents are ridiculous. So they obviously everything got exploded, right?
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because when I spoke to the lady at the Ritz-Carlton, you can rent out the apartment, but only 6 months. It's very tight on what you can do with your own apartment.
Interesting.
I was like, no, I don't like to be told what I can do and can't do with something that I own.
Yeah, if I'll take you to Sunny Isles, you'll fall in love. It's like Golden Beach, Sunny Isles. It's unbelievable, right? That building that I like, it's Armani Casa. It's a branded kind of. They have so many different branded, right? Like Bentley. But the location is great. It's just
really
incredible, And it's very close to that Golden Beach location.
Okay.
It's like 2 minutes away.
Okay.
So, but this is
I think there's a lot to explore in Florida.
A lot to explore.
And I think, like I said, I'm happy to help rebuild the Palisades. But for me, as a developer, I don't want to do any more here. Because I don't think there's no incentive.
Yeah,
every dollar I make, the city wants it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in Florida, as a developer, there's just much more opportunity.
And you know what I like about Florida, Melanie? When you get to Florida, there is some kind of there is a feeling, there is a vibe.
I think Florida's.
I'm saying that you can do something special. Like there is certain vibe. No matter how busy it is or how many developers you have and how many people in the industry. And by the way, people are super respectful. Like in generally speaking, I met Michael Stern. He's a real estate developer, billionaire, JDS Development. He's building the Mercedes building, for example, in Miami.
Right.
They built 57. I don't know if you're familiar with that crazy building on Billionaire Row in New York.
No.
But we went, so I have a good friend, architect, Kobe Karp in Florida. So we went to tour that property that they built over there. It's like 20,000 square feet, 4-level, $100 million tag price. So we toured the property and the guy came to us, he's the billionaire. He came to shake our hands. He came to say hello to us, right? Because he came from New York, right? So he's building that's his own. It's going to be second home, right? But people are so relaxed and so chill.
Agreed.
The vibe, it's especially it's so hot, right? You can go with a flip-flops.
No, I think
into
the vibe there
right?
is lovely.
It's amazing.
I feel very calm. I don't feel calm here anymore. It's a tough place. It's changed a lot.
LA changed a lot.
It's not the place I moved to.
Yeah.
And so what's really interesting though, all of my friends have said, if you go, we're coming. I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've got 3 or 4 friends that said, if you move there.
To Florida?
Yes,
really?
we'll move.
Cool.
So,
but I want to show you also that Silicon Valley location I'm talking about.
Okay.
I think that's almost like I don't know if you can say a secret, but it's a pocket that when you know, and there is developers that making tons of money,
Okay.
and things are going, things are moving, things are.
Well, that's it.
You
You know,
know,
we don't want to be
like,
stuck holding the bag once
yeah,
we've done
it's
all this work.
Yeah, it's like, depends on how much you buy, but it's like easy. The equation, it's usually like, 10, 10, 10. You buy for 10, you put 10, you sell it for 30 minimum. I'm talking about this is the minimum.
Yeah.
If you want to get into more expensive stuff, you can. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you can buy it for 10, you build for 10, you can get 40 or 50.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm saying,
Yes.
just being
That's
more
the rule of
conservative,
thumb.
right? Like that's like a piece
Yeah.
of cake all day long.
Yeah.
But there is value over there, and when you're there, you're gonna see it, you're gonna feel it, that pocket. And in Florida as well, some pockets in Florida, if you get into the right property.
Yes, and I don't know Florida well enough, so I would be leaning into you a little
I'm
bit.
actually working on a deal right now in what I mentioned behind the ocean front,
Okay.
like behind it.
Yeah.
So it's a private owner,
Okay.
So it's a private owner. She thinks it's worth 4. I think it's worth 3.
Yeah.
We're gonna meet
You're
somewhere
going
in the
to meet
middle,
somewhere,
right?
yes, yeah.
And for example, so let's say it's a 15,000 square feet lot, huge lot, right?
Nice,
I can
nice.
build 8,000 square feet
Yeah.
on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's say it's gonna cost me 500-600 a foot to build. By the way, Miami, it's very expensive to build. A lot of people don't know.
Well, 500 to 600 a square foot. Is it a glass house with steel? Because I think that's still a
I'm saying
good price.
for me, it's going to cost probably 5 to 6. But if you talk to someone like anyone, they're going to tell you at least 1,000. For example,
Yeah,
the
okay.
architects. When you work with architects, they tell you, what do you build?
Yeah.
Like Golden Beach,
Yeah.
1,000. They
Yeah.
charge you, based on 1,000 a foot.
Yeah.
Right, minimum.
Yeah.
But let's say you take the equation of even 1,000 a foot with the finishes, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not. We're talking about like high caliber,
Yeah.
So yes, you can go crazy. You can get to 1,500 a foot. You can get to 2,000. I mean, it's unlimited, right? But
Yeah.
for us, we want to kind of bring things in the right value so we can still make money, right?
Yes.
But that's for example, let's say you're gonna build it, for a certain. Obviously, you have a certain budget in mind. And you're going to sell it for a profit, a certain profit, right?
Yeah, I think if you can build anything for $500-600 a square foot,
Yes,
you're making money.
for sure, yeah.
Particularly in those areas that you've just talked about.
Exactly. So again, if it's the oceanfront one, it's a different equation. Now you get into 1,500 foot, 2,000 a foot to build, right?
Yes,
Sometimes,
yeah.
because the level you have to sell it for 100 million.
I know. Everything, every finish, every surface, everything.
It's a different level.
Is a different level.
Right, and some developers, I don't know if you heard about Todd Glazer. They sold the property in Palm Beach for 215 million.
Gosh.
Now they bought a property in North Bay Road right now from an Israeli billionaire that owns a development company that's doing a lot of high rises, like 10,000 Santa Monica. It's one of their projects.
Yeah.
He bought it for 100 million.
Just the
150,
land?
just the house, the land and the property on top of it, over 100 million.
Wow.
He's planning to redevelop it.
Yes.
Right? Probably not even tear it down. Just
I see. Just a nice running
and
project.
he's also his wife is the designer and he's the developer.
I love that.
So they have a good collaboration.
It's a great collaboration.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And he's planning to sell it around the 250 million.
Yeah. Well, he's done it
but he
once.
knows the market. He's probably he grew up in Palm Beach.
Okay. So he knows.
He's been riding the Florida wave for 20 years.
Yes.
And they actually owned a lot of those properties during COVID, and they got exploded. So right time, right? You have to be in the right time in the right place.
Yes, yeah.
But that's what I was saying. When you come to Florida, you still sense the land of opportunity type of kind of vibe, which you don't really sense that much. You probably don't sense it in LA, but in Silicon Valley you do. In Silicon Valley you do. Yeah,
I'm open. Listen, I'm open to
'cause
building
New York,
anywhere but here.
I love New York, for
Unless
example, also for real estate. But New York, it's different.
No, I'm not bothered about New York.
Yeah, it's different.
And I think, look, Karen Bass said that she may remove the ULA tax. Well, that would be helpful.
Yes.
But still, this is not really a good place
It's
to
like
make
if you
money.
slap somebody in the face,
I know.
they don't like you that much anymore,
No.
right?
Well, I feel like I'm giving how many people jobs? How many hundreds of people have I hired to build this house? And yet you're going to punish me for doing that.
Yeah.
That's how I view that.
Yeah, and it's on top of the higher rates, the market change, uncertainty, tariffs. There is so much you can take as a
Exactly.
developer, right?
Yeah.
And you want to find better locations. And also as far as like, lifestyle, there is a lot
Yes.
of, if you like obviously good quality lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a beautiful weather, but in Miami you have so many places. It's just beautiful lifestyle,
Yeah.
in general, right? So,
Yeah.
and again, living close to the beach and just
I
having that
love
kind of
it.
lifestyle. I mean,
That's my lifestyle.
it's
I
incredible.
like water. Pisces, baby. I like
Oh yeah,
water.
yeah. I love the
water.
ocean. So like I have a kind of a saying where no matter where you actually do business, where you work, you need to have a second location where you can see the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that kind of right.
Just look at it. I know.
That peace of
I
mind.
know. And even the water's nicer in Florida.
Oh yeah,
It's great
beautiful.
here.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just took my son. I have a 17-year-old boy. I just took him. He's a big man now.
Oh
He's
my
tall,
gosh.
taller than me, right?
Mine's turning 10 next month.
It's time. They grow up so
I know.
quickly. It's amazing, But he's a good kid, So I just, we just went on a little kind of vacation, like
I love
business /
it. Love
vacation.
it. Yeah.
So I take him with me. It's like a good, it's like my almost like my buddy. It's
I
like,
take my boy everywhere.
yeah, for sure. It's like it's
Everywhere.
my best friend.
Yeah, he's lovely. He's such a good traveler, and he
yeah.
helped me build this house. I have video of my son in the big machinery drilling the piles 70 feet deep.
That's cool. That's so cool.
He's really
do you have footage of that, like during construction?
Yes, I have all of it.
We should incorporate some of the before. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
So he helped me build the house, and now he wants to get into my business. So maybe he could, maybe he could come to you for some mentoring, man-on-man mentoring.
Yeah.
A different
100%.
vibe from a woman.
Yeah, we'll take him with us.
But it's hard
he's
hat
also
on.
going to like my son. So when I go somewhere,
Yeah.
I'll take them both of
Take
them.
them both. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, I'll be a babysitter
There
for you.
you
Why
go.
not?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So I think, that's very inspiring, Melanie, just to hear your story. You inspire me and you inspire a lot of other people. For me, it's like, I always like to end with the saying, what is for you, I guess, the essence of, if there is something that's, we can say building for the 1%, building for that unique or special, person that's looking for, a place they can call home in a luxury kind of market, environment. What is going to be resembled? Like, how do you?
So if I look at this house, it was very, I went against the grain, as I said earlier. I was told not to build a glass and steel house in the canyon. But in my vision, why would I not want to bring that canyon into this home? And so once I'd gotten to that point of, okay, I want to really embrace that canyon, what else could I do to make this house feel like a home? And then my mind said, well, let's bring in the exterior siding inside. So again, there's more organic feel. I didn't want it to feel like a modern box.
And you feel like part of nature when you're sitting, right?
Organic. If you look at my finishes, even my island has texture on it. So it was very, very important to me to feel organic. And then I wanted to go another step. And I wanted, when people came into this home, to feel very zen and feel very relaxed. We've talked about how busy it is out there.
You do feel it. You have that vibe. Like even when you get in the gate, you already have kind of a peaceful vibe.
Peaceful. I mean,
and you feel like home.
You don't see anything except trees. But if you look at my front entry, when you walk in, and that's absolutely beautiful at night when it's lit up.
Wow, that's nice.
But I have a koi pond.
Yeah, I love those.
Then I bookend it with the wraparound pool, so that you've got water elements on both sides. And at night, when all the doors are open and the pool's lit up, and it feels like it's in your home, it's very, very peaceful. And I think we talked earlier about how busy everything is now, how we don't have time to even see friends.
Right.
So your home has to be a sanctuary. And the feedback that I'm getting is that this house feels very warm. It feels very comfortable.
It is, I can tell you.
And
yeah, for sure.
not sterile. So I built a modern home in a canyon, but it doesn't feel stark or sterile.
It feels very warm. Yes, it doesn't feel like it does. It feels like you build it for yourself almost, right? Like
well, maybe I did.
Maybe you did, right?
Maybe I was waiting for a rich man to come and buy it, and so I could just,
And they will. But that's the best type of properties that you see, is that when people build it for themselves, you build a spec home, but because you did it in your own unique way and you put your heart and soul into it, that's the vibe that you get of it. You get like a Melanie
You get a
type
little
vibe,
piece of
right?
me in it, don't you?
You get a piece
and
of
I
you.
think that's why, as a female developer, there is something a little bit different, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but maybe it is that. Maybe there's a bit of the femininity in there that you might not get with a male developer.
Yes, that's correct, right? I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of those type of property are being influenced by designers that may be females, right? Depends on the teams that's working on the property. But I think that the person that you had the vision to build for, eventually they come along, right?
That's right.
You know, so you just need one person that,
That's right.
you know, have
You
the
only
same
need one.
feeling,
You
right?
only need one.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't hire an architect for this house.
Yeah, that's the most interesting
And
part of it,
I
right?
know. And
Yeah.
so when I mentioned earlier that my scribble, and it was a scribble, believe me, but at the time my GC understood all the, you know, you've got to have a bit of a wonky brain to look at a piece
Listen,
of land.
that's brave. I'll tell you. I'm doing construction for over 20 years. You mentioned you're also in construction for 20 years in development. I never build without my architects,
No,
my
I
team.
know,
You know,
I know.
I can't move without my
It
team.
was a, you know,
You
I
know?
feel that the previous house I built, yes, I hired an architect, but I realized that I was changing so much of everything.
But so for us, we have a, you know, like the way I like to run my business, we have a very extensive, you know, due diligence on every. I mean, we like to micromanage.
Yeah.
You know, everything. So yeah.
Would I do it again without an architect? No, I wouldn't. I'm glad I did it, because now I can say, well, I did it. You know, my scribble became my reality, and my 3 design elements are here. But would I do it again? No.
Yeah, but
I think
you know,
I took the road less traveled, and it was more the scenic route than the motorway, and obviously time is money.
Yeah.
So I feel that for sure, if
You would not do
anyone,
it again, yeah.
you
So
should
don't do it-
absolutely
don't do
hire
it
an
without an
architect.
architect.
Don't do it my way. But
I think though it's important for people to understand, when you work with an architect, like let's say you are the novice, you know, homeowner, end user, even developer. You're trying to do a flip, you're trying to do any kind of development, and you don't have experience. You cannot just hire the individual. It can be an architect, it can be a designer. You know, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the road ahead.
Yeah.
You do need to micromanage those people, because as much as they can be good creatively, you need to know how to manage them and make sure things are moving forward. There is a lot of back and forth sometimes, you know, when plannings are not done properly. There is a lot of things that's been missing on the plans.
Yes.
That we have to really make sure that before we submit the plans to the city, because you know what people don't know, for example,
So time consuming.
you know, it's time consuming, and stuff can get, like, let's say some plans can get approved by the city, but during construction the inspector will ask you to
That's
change
right.
everything,
That's right.
right?
That's
So-
right.
so some
It's just a dance, and I think
Yes.
some of the cities, I mean, the bureaucratic hoops we have to jump through
Yeah.
is really incredible, and that's the behind the curtain that people don't
That's what I
see.
love, for example, in Atherton that I mentioned.
Yes.
You have only one inspector,
I love that.
you know, and you
I
go to
love
them,
that.
they know you personally.
Yes.
You go to the city, it's very close
Yes,
by. It's such an amazing experience.
This is so almost impossible
Yeah.
here. And when we talk about Malibu, you're looking at 5-6 years to get permits.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Unbelievable.
You know, in the Palisades, they're fast tracking the permits. And I had a GC contact me and said, you know, Melanie, would you join the team as the designer? And I said, yes. So in that team, we have an architect, we have the GC, we have all the crew and the subs and me. And we've now opened an office up there. And I think it's that lovely aspect of one-stop shop. So you start with the architect, and then you'll talk to me about the design.
Yeah, the design and build aspect,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's
and then
gorgeous,
we've got the GC and the crew and everyone there.
So if somebody want to reach out to you and work with you, what is the best way to contact you, where they can find you?
Well, you can find me on Insta, Melanie Marlo Design, or you can email me at melanie@melaniemarlo.com, and I'll respond. And my website's melaniemarlodesign.com.
Oh, so you do have a website?
I do have
okay,
a website as well.
cool. Nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for.
Because my Instagram's sort of all over. I'm not of the era of the.
So you have all your projects on the website?
No,
no?
yes, on my
you do?
website. But
Okay.
Insta for me is the.
It's more personal.
I'm not. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're not 20
you have
where
to
we're
put a
doing
lot
this
of-
all day long, and
Yeah.
it's not my
It's
thing.
a lot of.
I'm trying.
Do you like being on camera?
I do like being on camera. I think that goes back to my modelling days where I was always in front of the camera. You know, I've been on a lot of real estate shows, and actually right now in the UK, I am actively pitching my own show.
No way.
Yes.
No way. So I'm
That's
going
a
to tell you
spoiler
after
alert.
that also something that
Yes,
we also, go ahead, yeah.
Well, I signed a shopping agreement, which was a big deal. So the show is called Renovation Queen, and it's about me renovating manor houses and castles that have fallen in disrepair. And the reason they fall into disrepair is because they're so expensive to run. So I thought, right, let me, because I'm British and I love my history, but let me renovate them to their former glory. But also every week, let's bring in an expert on different ways that this manor house or castle could make money. So one week I'll bring in a wedding planner. One week and I'll bring in a corporate event, bed and breakfast. You know, there are so many ways that these homes could pay for themselves. And then we keep the history of the building and the integrity and the hundreds of years of history that these homes were built in.
So it's interesting. I actually had an idea for a show as well. And, you know, the way I call my YouTube, when I started my YouTube like several years ago, I called it Building Silicon Valley. And I was thinking I can trademark it under Building Los Angeles, Building Silicon Valley. And I did see you on a couple of real estate shows, right? $1 Million Listing, Selling Sunset. I literally saw you back to back in those shows, right?
That was not meant to happen.
It's interesting.
I can tell you why that happened, and I did try to address it because I was like, wait. And
I've seen this property, right?
You've seen this,
yeah.
yes. So in different states of build. And what happened was $1 Million Listing filmed me first, but they didn't air it forever. And I wondered if it was ever going to be aired. And as it turns out, that season did get aired, and then they dropped the entire show. So I had a feeling that maybe they were winding that show down because it got dropped in New York, it got dropped in Miami, and it just seemed to have had its run. But they did eventually air the series. Unfortunately, they took so long, and Selling Sunset was so quick that they literally were within weeks of each other.
Yeah, so it's amazing. So my idea was like, because they always like have the agents as the celebrity, right? Like the agents are the celebrity. Yes. Why not to have the developer?
I agree.
As the celeb. I mean, we are the celebrities,
not
the agent. The agent is working for us.
I can't actually say anything because I can't yet, but you'll see me on... Well, you'll see me again, let's just say that, on a very popular show. And the producer was really trying to create some drama and pit me against the agent on the show. And she was saying, you're the star. You've been doing this for 20 years. She is,
just an agent.
Yeah.
Right.
And they wanted the drama. And I said, well, look, all she's doing is lowballing.
Yeah.
And
they love the drama.
They wanted me to tell her to out the house.
Yeah.
And I said, but I wouldn't do that to an agent. I would do that to...
So like for me, I wanted basically, to basically have a show about the developer lifestyle, like showing actually like their projects, right? To have like a few developers, like you have a few agents.
Yes. And I think that's the key, because what I've learned doing quite a bit of television now is, we talk about time is money, it's even more so there. So when I was pitching, I have another show.
You pitched them in London?
No, I pitched a production company here.
Oh.
I had 3 different shows. And
you mean ideas, basically?
Yes.
Oh, interesting, really? I didn't know that you're pursuing a TV show. So
well,
we should
I just
definitely
think that people... I've done so much of it now that it's second nature to me, and that's why I said to you.
I love it. I love being. I'll be honest. The reason why I'm filming and I'm being, doing what I do, it's actually fun for me, and it's making my job more interesting.
Yes.
Because construction can be very boring. Sometimes.
Don't say that.
No,
we're trying to sell being a developer.
The end result, it's amazing.
Well, this is what I say.
But to get there, right?
The buying of the property, there's a buzz. The designing of what we're going to build, there's a buzz. The end, when we're doing the finishes and there's the buzz. But
Yeah.
that lapse in the middle is quite boring.
You know, the way I run my business, and I wish sometimes people can see it, you know, I really fight for, and sometimes I tell it to clients, I fight for every dollar
Yes.
they spend. Because for
Yes.
me, I tell you, we have what we call an open book, meaning,
Yes.
you know, I have cost
Yes.
plus type of
Yes.
operation.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's
yeah.
say if my cost is 1 million,
Yes, yes.
I will charge my 15, 20%,
Yes,
whatever it
yes,
is.
yes.
But I deliver the entire project at wholesale prices. If our clients gonna go directly to the vendors or subcontractors
Correct.
or the showrooms to buy the
Yes.
products,
Yes.
they will pay much more. So I
Correct.
become free
That's right.
to our clients.
I say this, you know, I told you I'm not an interior designer, but
Yeah, and
since
you
I
see
did
it.
this,
You see it, how
I
much
have-
money you save,
I
right?
have been brought in, and so that's exactly what I've told the people when I've been to
If
their
you would be an
homes.
homeowner that building
And
the property,
I've told them I get my discounts.
right?
And so you're paying for me, but you're not really, because if you went to that store, you wouldn't
You
get
would
the
pay more.
discounts. So yes, and it's just trying to educate them.
So that's one
on
thing,
that.
right? And another thing is, for example, work with people that actually have the right expertise in what they selling or what they do, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes, like, you can hire anybody, everybody will take a job, especially in the luxury market. Everybody want to taste.
Yes, yes.
But you need to make sure if you're working with a slab fabricator or, you know, somebody that installed the tiles, there is different level to this game.
Oh yes.
And everybody will take the job.
Yes.
You know, I've seen people
Yes.
that like taking the job, like vendor, subcontractor, and they don't have an idea of how things needs to run, how things needs to be, and you have to let them go.
Yes.
You know, but you have to have that eye to know if people actually like performing, you know, the way they should. And also, like we went back to the first example, if you're hiring someone directly, they can put a lien on your property.
I know.
You cannot fire them.
So let's
So-
talk about that, because I think that's another thing that we can educate people on. And you're right. We don't have this in England, but in America, they have a very warped system. So, like you said, they can put a lien on your property, and it could be through no fault of your own. It
Yeah.
could be, I'll just give some examples. I've paid the GC and the GC didn't pay the sub.
Right.
But they put the lien on my house, and you can see, well, I paid him. It could be that you've refused to pay because the work is shoddy, and you're saying that's not up to par. Oh, they can lien your property.
Yes.
So there's an unfairness to that I take umbrage about.
Yes, no, it's ridiculous.
Having said that, you can bond the lien. Your lawyer can bond the lien, and so you can still sell the property without the lien. So that was something that but I find it very odd
Yeah, so
that that's something that they are allowed to
So what
do.
I tell the clients, you sign with us, we are responsible. I can fire someone. I have a very specific contracts with my vendors, my subcontractors, and I don't like to fire people. You know, I like to educate them.
Yes, but sometimes you just have
you have to let them go.
You just have to.
And you know, if they don't do things the way I like it, I'm just going to let them go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not maybe the right word to say the average homeowner, but when I'm saying the average homeowner, the one that doesn't have experience in those type of projects,
Exactly.
if they hire those individuals, architects, designers, subcontractors, vendors, and
No, they're signing up for a whole
they don't know
host
what they
of
get
problems.
into, right?
Yes.
So when they sign with us, they have a peace of mind.
Yeah.
They have a policy assurance, not a policy insurance, but a policy insurance. Their peace of mind. They know that they are in a good. No matter what, they're gonna get their perfect vision
I love
executed.
that. Yes.
And if I want to let someone go, I can let them go without any consequences to the property. So it's very, very important, right, to have
Yes,
that kind of due
super
diligence.
important.
So for me, it's not really about the budget, but things, obviously, when you get into a luxury, type of development, type of projects, things tends to be more expensive because you're dealing with different materials, different labor, and so forth. And obviously, you're paying, it's like the old saying, you get what you pay for. 100%, right? So I see it more and more often. Sometimes people, they get a few estimates, they talk to a few people, and sometimes they go with the cheapest guy.
I said, don't go for the most expensive, don't go for the
Go in the
cheapest.
middle, right?
Just go somewhere in here.
Go in the middle. And sometimes things go up during construction. For me, I like when I give the clients, let's say, the price, I like it to end. I don't like to do, I like to be very efficient when I provide an estimate. So I know I build it and I have my contingency and I'm good to go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think, there are variables as well that are not in our control.
For sure.
You know, we've just had the tariff steel now.
Yeah, exactly.
To purchase steel from
And
Canada right
people,
now.
and people already, I hear from a lot of
Yes.
vendors, subcontractors, showrooms,
Yes.
products are being expensive.
Yeah.
They're already using what I call it, the COVID trick, the COVID pitch. Like, like things gonna get,
Yeah.
you have to buy now because things
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
so they're already like, oh, if you don't, purchase until the first, things are going up, right?
Yeah.
So people are already taking it,
Yes.
executing
Listen, there's
on that.
always going to be people on the make. I remember.
Listen, we cannot end the conversation. We just have such a nice flow of the conversation. I'm not. Yeah, that's the best type of podcast, by the way. When you have that flow,
Exactly.
then you can talk forever. We're
That's
so
why
passionate about the subject.
I just told him I didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I didn't look at you online. I didn't Google. I didn't do anything. I wanted to meet you, the person.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And I don't like getting fed questions before. I like to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's conversation. That's the
I
thing.
think that's-
COVID is the new coffee. Yeah, I mean, podcast is the new sitting for a podcast. It's like sitting for a coffee.
Where's my coffee? I
Yeah,
don't
where's
drink
my
coffee.
coffee? Oh, you don't drink
I'm a
coffee?
tea and chocolate girl. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah.
You get a little bit from the chocolate.
My name at the Hotel Bel Air is the Chocolate Cake Lady.
I love the Bel Air. I mean, yeah.
I'm
I
there
love it.
every day.
Yeah?
We walk down every day.
I love that place.
They don't
yeah.
know my name, but they know I'm the Chocolate Cake Lady. That's what we do.
So if I want a chocolate cake,
you have to take
give
me.
me the mail.
You have to take me.
I'll for sure. Yeah, we'll see.
No,
Yeah.
it's lovely there.
Next time we'll meet over there. We'll talk about some projects, some interesting projects.
Yeah, I'd love to. Love
For
to
sure,
talk
yeah.
about some projects. That'd be great.
So, Melanie Marlo, you guys know where to find her. It was
Yeah.
great. It was pleasure.
Lovely chatting with you.
They're gonna see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.